Now this is in RGB mode and it's not even in the document I need. Keep in mind the instructions say make a CMYK file, duplicate this over, but as I demonstrated earlier, what that will do is just select for us the relative colorimetric conversion intent for us. So I want to control it in case a different one looks better. So I'm going to make a new document. And 7.5 by 10, 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to leave it RGB for just a minute. Pop that over. Now on these fishies, I'm going to duplicate this over to that new layer, that new document. So I'm just going to quickly, I should be able to Control J, right? No, Control Shift J. I can never remember this one. Control Alt J. There, nope. Control Alt Shift J. No, oh well. I can never remember the shortcut for duplicate layer. I'm going to send it over to this untitled document as my flattened duplicate. Only it's not supposed to be called flattened duplicate, it's supposed to be called image. So I'm going to call it image. Now, before we do the conversion to a smart object, I'm going to set this document to CMYK. So keep in mind, these are identical in many ways. I've got them. I guess I don't need my original fish files or my snails. We'll just close those up for now. We just have our two documents here. All right, we're going to go over to Edit, and we're going to convert the profile, and we'll take a look at what we've got. Probably relative colorimetric with the flattened image to preserve appearance. I don't need to do that because guess what? It's already flattened. So I'm going to uncheck that. Using dither, that's fine. It's just going to add some noise. And I'm going to use the black point compensation. Tell it okay. Oh, I think that worked super well. Let's pop open history real quick. Just darkened the fish a little bit. Don't really like what it did to that fish. Let's try perceptual real quick. Convert to profile. Tell it okay. That's a little more tolerable. All right. Well, now let's try one more saturation. I'm going to go to, again, Edit, Convert, try saturation. Before, after. Let's just go with the default. I think it was doing just fine. Assign profile, convert to profile. Edit, convert to profile, relative colorimetric, use the black point compensation. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Okay, so we've got it set, and we're going to pop back the instructions to make sure we get everything that we need. This needs to be a smart object, so I'm going to right-click and set it to be a smart object. Convert to smart object. Save. Because saving is always good. And how do we name this? We're going to name it the, whoa, I hit the wrong number there. The number, your last name. I'm still seeing some people do last name. Literally, they're typing out. Don't do that. Use your actual last name. And then your first name. And don't type out first name. I don't know what the deal with that is. Type out your first name. And then put in whatever version number you have. And that's not, and I've seen this too, don't put number, put the number that you have. That's all I'm asking. That's all. All right. So I've got things reduced. I have it in its own image, so it's time to do the pixelate color halftone. So filter, pixelate, color halftone. Now I'm going to leave it at 10. Here are the one of the two recommended settings, and you can play with this a bit. The defaults, by the way, for Photoshop should be like 108, and let's just take a look at that. 162, 90. Did I not put in 162? 162, 90, and 45. So these are the defaults. Yeah, you know, that actually looks pretty good. So you can see that the text, I think the bubbliness is kind of cute, but I think we've got some issues here. let's take a look at what this might look like in another structure. 105, 75, 045. I think that looks better. We'll do that one. And notice that we don't have any weird RGB style stuff going on. Okay. A lot of details got lost. Let's do one more adjustment here. What if we make a max radius lower? That's too low. Double check what the requirements have. I usually have a minimum in here. So that means you can't make it any smaller than that, and you have to adjust your graphic after the fact. So if you just set it to 4, that's kind of cheap because that will just work out every single time. But if I say something like no smaller than 6, then boom, you absolutely have to make sure that your image is going to work on something, with some pretty big blobby things in it. So here we go. I think this is looking okay. I think I could have done more of a reduction on these 2 fish. So, I'd go back and do some more adjustments and get those looking better, and then duplicate it back over and keep doing those kinds of adjustments. But I don't want you guys to have to sit here and watch me do this like 30 times in a row. I just want to walk through this assignment so that you can see what it's supposed to look like. Now let's say I wanted a background of a different color, like a solid color here. And remember, this has to be a solid color. You can either fill something but it's not to be a gradient. Let's do this light green. Now there's an issue. There's white. So we need to mask away the white. Now don't mask away the white until after you have applied your color halftone. Otherwise, if you change your color halftone later, if you decide you want like a slightly larger radius or whatever, you'll have to reapply the entire mask. So don't do it until you're absolutely ready to do it. Now that said, let's adjust this, and we'll need to take care of some little bits and pieces. I'm going to take my magic wand tool, and I'm going to my magic wand tool, here we are, magic wand tool, and I'm going to turn off contiguous. I'm just going to click the white. So that will get more or less all the white. It will also get some of the lighter little bits and pieces, which will be fine in this case. And let me go ahead and alt click to mask out all the white. And now you can see why maybe you don't want green. Go again. Now notice though there's still some light little blobs, and I might have accidentally gotten some other things. So how do you get if you still have little bits and pieces of white sticking around, how do you get rid of those? Well, here's one way to do it. You make a hard mix blending layer at the top of your stack here. So I would go in. Oh, real quick, let's check something. Make sure that there aren't any weird grays in here. I might want to do a threshold on this. It should be okay. I don't really want any transparencies. So this should just be flat out getting rid of it. It just has the appearance of gray because of, well, the amplitude modulation screening effect here. It's creating the appearance of a gradient, so it's actually fine. All right, so create a hard mix at the top of the stack. And this is fine for you all to do too. So I'm going to use brightness contrast as my dummy layer. I don't need that. I need to clip it down. I missed. Clip it down. I'm just alt clicking between it. It's the same thing as going to layer and then do a create clipping mask. In this case, I have release clipping mask. Set it to hard mix. And notice it's not really doing any changes. Not really. In fact, I'd recommend this in general. Just do the hard mix, because now you have flat out the red, greens, blues, the cyans, yellows, and magentas are the only things that survive. Now is the time to do the magic wand tool with contiguous off and sample all layers. So that we'll go through to go through it. So let's get rid of that real fast. So now with hard mix on, take the wand, clicky clicky, grab it, and then on the image, Alt, click. Take a look at that. With the hard mix, it flat out got it to such a few set of colors, it didn't have any problems going in and eliminating all of the whites. It cleans it up immediately. So highly, highly recommend that you use the hard mix. In fact, check the instructions. I might have required it. Now, that said, we have that going on. Now that we've done that, we don't need to keep the hard mix anymore. This is the crazy bit. Because it... let's put this back to... I'm just trying some different colors. So with the hard mix, without the hard mix, notice there's no white because it's cropped in enough to get rid of those for us, which is pretty cool. Okay. That said, we can play around. Oh, I like that. Find something enjoyable. Use that. Check out what this weird line is. It's just an artifact. Doesn't actually exist. Nothing there. That's fine. Save. This looks pretty good. You know, there's still a lot. I would have reduced these two more. Look how beautifully this red fish worked. The blue fish could have been reduced more as well. Okay, but that should give you an idea of how to do this assignment. What's the last couple of things we need to do? Well, we've got our 2 layers. Are they named correctly? This one needs to be background, and that's not. And this one needs to be image, and it is. Okay, that's good. Anything else? You may want to separate colors into different layers and apply the pixel color halftone separately before flattening them down to one layer. To preserve crisp edges, use your best judgment. So what would that look like? Let me just demonstrate that on a different image real quick, because I think this one actually looks pretty okay. Let me pop one open. Here's an image I took in Rome, a little photo. Hello, come here, Photoshop. Pop that open. So what do I mean by moving them to different layers first? Well, basically this. Let's say that I've reduced this image, and let's say that I did it through, I don't know, the good old dummy layer. Again, I really need to turn off that setting. I almost never need that layer mask. Do a hard mix. Let's say I've reduced it down to these colors, and it looks, I'm happy with it. So Control-Shift-E. So I've got this guy. Let's say I had it in CMYK document because I just did a Control-A, Control-C, Control-V. I could have just duplicated to a new document. That would have been fine too. Going to convert to profile. I'm going to use relative colorimetric. Here we go. So what do I mean by I may want to move each color separately? Well, it's just this. I'm going to grab the magic wand tool. I'm going to cut out that color. Or I guess I could copy out that color, paste it down. I've got yellow. Control click on it again. I'm going to delete that yellow from the original. So I've got yellow on a separate layer. So now what if, and again, contiguous is off, so it should be grabbing all of them. So I can copy that and paste it down. I've got orange. And again, control click on it and delete off the orange. And let's say I get black. And really that's all there is to it. All that's left is white. So I said you may want to put them all separately and then put it in. Now this is the tricky bit, because I need it in a smart object so I can play with it. So this is going to actually be a 2-step process. Convert them to smart objects. Then apply your filter. And notice how badly it did the black. So on this one, I do a little trick on here. going to add a mask add a mask right on this one. And then where it's just black, I'm going to select that. Whoops, I need to invert this mask. Control-Shift-I. Everything else can disappear. I do not need it. So I've just got this this black swatch. In fact, it should have filled this in a little bit better. But there you have it. And I wonder if it didn't think... Let me go back a couple of steps on this. Oops. Not that many steps. How black is this? Eyedropper, click. Not that black. So I'm going to make it really black. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to do this. Rasterize this layer. D for default. Get to this black. Control click. Alt delete. So I have pure black here. Now turn it to a smart object. Kaboom. And now color halftone. And on this one, if I tell it OK, it's still going to have all these colors. But what if I did something else, such as filter color halftone, and on the black, set everything to 0. Now it's got it as black as it can get it going in, but it has kind of a crazy effect. So I think I would prefer 45 degrees on everything. And because they all line up, it should be pretty much black. There we go. That looks much better. All right, and so now the crisp edges should be better preserved on these. But would I recommend this? Generally not. So use at your discretion because it looks kind of weird, a little choppy. So at this point, though, you need to do one more thing. Grab all of them, toss them all into the smart object, and then you'll want to get rid of the white if there is any, and there is. So you're going to just come on over to your mask. Come in here through wand. Really should have done that first. Grab all of your white and mask that out. Maybe a couple of times, just so that it gets rid of all of it. All right. So now I can make a new background. You do a solid color. Maybe a dark orange again. And this will be called background. I don't like that color. Let's see what else we've got. Maybe an off-white. All right. And voila. Now, would I recommend this? Very rarely would I recommend this. I think it oftentimes looks a lot messier as the end result. Look how choppy some of these things are. When would this be good to use? Well, if you have big black chunks, maybe just separate out the black chunks. And what would that look like? That would look something like this. So on your black chunk, go ahead and put the color halftone at 45. And then on these two, which would need to be rasterized, which for some reason I keep mousing over and not clicking. These two turn it to smart filter, convert to smart object, sorry, and then do a filter, color halftone, pixelate, color halftone, punch in the correct numbers. Let's do rosette. That looks a bit better. Still a little weirdly chunky. That's just going to be part of this particular image because of the white. Now toss both of these into a color halftone, into a smart object. Now remember, always, I want you always to do a smart object before color halftone so that I can see what the image looked like before. Let's get rid of that for a second. Let's go ahead and toss on a solid color just so we can see what we're doing. We've got all this white that needs to go. So over here, wand, clicky click. Get rid of that mask. Get rid of that with a mask. Oops. I'm just going to do it a couple of times to make sure I get all of it. All right. Image. Background. And what would this look like? Maybe like that. So that's another way to handle it, but I need to be able to come in here and see your smart filters with the color halftone so I can take a look at what the image looked like before. If you have this not on a smart object, I won't be able to do that. You're going to lose points in the grade. All right, so on that note, I think that's unnecessary. This works out pretty well. Again, you can see that the more reduction that was done on this red fish and this blue fish worked out much better than the reduction that was done on the one fish and the two fish. So keep that in mind. The more you can reduce it, the more graphic you can make this at the beginning, the better off it will be. So if you start with, actual drawings and stuff, the reduction may work out a lot better. And play around with it. You're not cemented into using those specific color halftone settings. You can come in and try different degrees. Like, how would this look with like 95 or 26 or something? Keep in mind though that you're going to have to recreate your mask every time you do these adjustments. And if you want to make the mask well, you may need to temporarily put a hard mix mode on top of it, just so that you can get all that white and get rid of all that little bits and pieces of it. And if you prefer, you can leave the hard mix. I think that this looks terrible with hard mix on it, so no reason really to keep it in my case, except to gather up the chunks of white. All right, so that's all there is to that one. Let's delete this. So you get it how you like it, save it out, turn it in, and that's about it. Now, all that said, what if you were actually going to print this and you were setting up your own little t-shirt? You would need to go into the channels, select each of these individual channels, right? And by the way, before you do that, you'd have to turn off the background. So go into each of these individual channels, and wherever these exist, select all, copy. Oh, I'm on multiples. Select all, copy, make a new file, paste it all in, go to your image and mode, and then change it to grayscale first, and then bitmap. And then once you have the bitmap, you can set up however you actually need the halftone screen to be. And you put in your frequency and your angle and all that. And look how well it converted it. Because it was already dots, it did very little. All right, so you'd have to do that for all four. Then you print that on a chunk of plastic, and you do it for the emulsion and all that stuff, and you'd be ready to go. Just like we discussed earlier, if you have four of these things, you need to print it out 4 times, once for each color on top of your cloth. But for this assignment, all you have to do, thankfully, is turn in this one file with your 2 layers, and then you're set. So that's it. If you have any questions, do let me know. Otherwise, you are good to go. And yeah, I think this is a pretty fun assignment. It is time consuming though, because a lot of times you have to scrap the first one and go back to, and after you know how it's going to look with the color halftone and everything, and just start working on it again after you've done the image reduction. Okay, so have fun and let me know if you have any questions.